What's up, everybody, men? Back to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. I recently had the honor of appearing on the Dead Meat podcast alongside James and Chelsea. To them, I can never say thank you enough. Although I am intimately familiar with the original Godzilla, I wanted to get as familiar as possible with it, leading to me taking way more notes than anyone could ever need. I have 9 pages of notes here for the podcast, and obviously we didn't talk about everything. So in this video, I want to do just that. I want to talk about all of the things I took notes on. Let this serve as something of a crash course Godzilla. This will teach a little bit of the background on Godzilla, go into the themes of the movie, talk a little bit about the cast and crew. Although I'm not going to go in depth with any topics, I will cover things in a broad spectrum. I will say though, you do need a general knowledge of the film to understand this video. Go watch the movie. I don't talk about the plot. So if you want to know a little bit more about the background of this movie and a little bit more about what it's trying to convey, this is the video for you. I hope you enjoy. So today, welcome to Crash Course Godzilla. I'm going to run you through everything that I think is important to know about the original film going in. We're really coming out of it. Watch the movie first. If you haven't seen it, watch it first. Spoilers ahead. In the 1940s, Ishiro Honda was drafted into war 3 times by the Imperial Army. During one of the intervals between his wartime, Honda was present for the fire bombings of Tokyo. On August 6th, 1945, Hiroshima was hit with the atomic bomb. On August 9th, 1945, Nagasaki was hit with the atomic bomb. In total, somewhere between 129,000 and 226,000 people were killed. Honda had been taken as a POW by Chinese soldiers and was held through 1945, where he learned of the atomic bombings and of Japan's defeat. Later in 1945, Honda returned home to visit the remains of Nagasaki. Fast forward a little bit. On March 1st, 1954, Castle Bravo is detonated at Bikini Atoll, and the crew of the Daigo Fukaru Maru, or the Lucky Dragon No. 5, is coated in death ash, which was radioactive fallout. The 23 members all suffered radiation exposure. A tuna scare happened in Japan as radioactive fish populated the ocean, and 6 months later, Kubiyama Akichi, the radio operator of the Lucky Dragon, became the first victim of the hydrogen bomb. Later in 1954, producer Tomiyuki Tanaka came up with the idea for Gojira. He passed the idea on to Shigeru Kayama, a novelist who turned the idea into a story. Kayama lends a novel structure to the film, allowing the principal characters to appear and disappear when needed in order to serve the story. This is quite the unusual format for many movies. Takeo Murata and director Ishiro Honda adapted the story into a screenplay. Many of the crew members working on Godzilla were warned against taking the job. People called it career suicide. The movie was shot with 3 teams: Honda's A team, special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya's B team, and Hiroshi Mukuyama's composite team. This team was responsible for including matte paintings and Godzilla's atomic breath to pre-existing shots. Out of 868 shots in this movie, Godzilla includes a total of 263 special effects shots. By way of comparison, Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey has only 205 special effects shots. The Tokyo set represented in the movie is of 1/25th scale, and it's meant to recreate the Ginza Ward of Tokyo. A model of the Shinagawa rail hub was also produced for the film. During the shoot, the crew was ridiculed by people on the lot, and eventually they earned the ironic nickname Goji, because they all had to work past 5 o'clock every day. Goji's the Japanese term for 5 o'clock. Honda, Tanaka, and Tsuburaya all feared that the special effects looked silly and unconvincing until they watched the scenes accompanied by Akira Ifukube's score. About Akira Ifukube, he was heavily influenced by the music of the Innu tribes and Western composers. Godzilla's footsteps were produced by a primitive electronic amplifier. His roar was produced by rubbing a leather glove against a stringed contrabass and then manipulating the audio. The score was finished only 1 week after filming wrapped on the movie due to a tight schedule. To build anticipation for the film, a radio drama, The Monster Godzilla, aired leading up to the film's release. The movie was produced with an estimated budget of around 100 million yen. It was the most expensive picture ever produced in Japan up to that point. Godzilla scraped up 183 million yen at the box office, which was an incredibly high number for 1954 Japan. It was seen by up to 11% of the Japanese population in theaters, and it placed number 8 at the box office for the year. It broke box office records for Toho and was a huge hit. It also became the most successful film produced in Japan on an international market. The film received mixed reviews, with critics finding it insensitive and too touchy. In general, general, it was agreed upon by the critical establishment in Japan that the politics expressed in the movie were too depressing and made the film hard to watch. However, the movie also won the Japanese Movie Association Award for Best Special Effects, and Godzilla nearly won Best Picture before getting beaten out by Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. During filming, shooting for Odo Island took place in the Mie Prefecture in Ijak. It was so hot that many of the cast and crew were incredibly low energy and had a hard time getting through the shots. It's also been reported that Honda suffered severe sunburns on his back during this time. The natives in the film are played by real villagers who had a difficult time understanding the concept of pretending to react to an imaginary threat. The underwater scenes at the end of the movie were done in the actual ocean. Professional divers took the spots of Ogata and Serizawa, but when it came to getting the images, the responsibility fell to Yuzaru Aizawa, who had never dived before. During his first time submerging, he forgot to turn on his air pump and wound up blacking out and floating back up to the surface. Haruo Nakajima, the actor who plays Godzilla, received no instruction on how to play the monster. He had to resort to studying large animals at the zoo and an old print of King Kong in order to craft the character. Nakajima also had to suffer inside a 220-pound suit while acting. Nakajima, as well as his co-star Katsumi Tezuka, whose work, according to Nakajima, doesn't appear in the film, were both rewarded for their efforts as playing Godzilla with cameos. They appear as Hagiwara's editors in the film. The main players in the crew include producer Tomoyuki Tanaka, director Ishiro Honda, special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya, cinematographer Masao Otami, and composer Akira Ifukube. The main features in the cast include Hidito Ogata, played by Akira Takarada, Emiko Yamane, played by Momoko Kochi, Dr. Desuke Serizawa, played by Akihiko Harata, Dr. Kyohei Yamane, played by Takashi Shimura, Hagiwara, played by Sashio Sakai, and Gojira, played by Haruo Nakajima and Katsumi Tezuka. A few of these actors were actually main staples in Akira Kurosawa's films. There are a lot of overlaps between Godzilla and Kurosawa that go unnoticed and unrecognized by most people, Ishiro Honda being one of the biggest. Honda worked on a number of Kurosawa films, and they were career-long collaborators and friends. The themes expressed in Godzilla. First off, we are introduced to a country in a transitional period between pre- and post-war. This was one of the first critical films made post-occupation. The American occupation of Japan ended in 1952. This is when censorship in the country was lifted. That means that this is one of the first films to show the growing pains of democracy in the country. Specifically, the scene at the Diet Building highlights this. The movie also has the influence of the recent women's suffrage movement, which hit Japan post-war. There is a female section of the Diet who clashes with the older men in the Diet. The women take a more progressive side in the debate, wanting to inform the public about Godzilla's origins. Emiko and Ogata's relationship is caught between worlds. There's a love triangle between the old and the new world. This is common for Honda, as he was a feminist who specialized in women's dramas during his early career. There are also themes of class relations in the film. This is highlighted through the use of characters such as Ogata and Shinkichi. Next big one is the role of science. Honda viewed science as both a helpful tool in development and a terrifying threat to humanity. He thought that scientists must be responsible for how their creations are used. Scientists must find a way for their inventions to benefit and bring peace to humanity. They must consider the consequences of their actions. Godzilla is born from the atomic bomb. He is what happens when scientists ignore the dangers of their devices. Godzilla is a victim of the atomic bomb just like Japan. Yamane wants to keep Godzilla alive because there's still potential for good, even in the bad. The oxygen destroyer's power is so terrifying that Serizawa must die to prevent its future use. Serizawa was meant to be the most empathetic and heroic character in the film. Next up, we have Godzilla himself. Godzilla's ties to the atomic bomb were never meant to reflect anti-American sentiment. The movie is very reserved in its critical views of the West. It's more critical towards its own government than those responsible for Godzilla. Honda viewed the atomic bomb as a universal problem that affected everyone on the planet equally. He saw it as a fear that would hang around the world's necks for eternity. Godzilla's destruction is meant to be reminiscent of both the atomic bombings and of the Tokyo fire raids. The film ends with a prayer for Serizawa and Godzilla. The film is supposed to be told from the perspective that Godzilla is equally the victim of what happens. To quote Ishiro Honda, A Life in Film, From Godzilla to Kurosawa, a book by Stephen Ryfle and Ed Godziszewski, there is no rejoicing, only a profound sense of loss. Next up, we have ties to the Lucky Dragon number 5. This is referenced with the destruction of the Iko Maru at the start of the film. The life preserver on board reads number 5, and the radio operator is the first to die, much like in real life. Now we come to Honda's universal theme, the theme of peace. This movie was meant to bring peace to the audience who watches it. The film can be viewed from the perspective that Japan is the victim of World War II. They were attacked by an unstoppable force, one which they provoked but didn't deserve its wrath. The innocent men and women of Japan were made to suffer because America was filled with vengeance and anger. The film can also be viewed as from the perspective of those who need to abandon the old ways. Godzilla arrives and destroys the establishment. He tears through the bureaucracy, exposing an incompetent government in the process. He shreds down the old guard and gets revenge on behalf of the Japanese people for those who were sent to their deaths by the Imperial Army during a useless war. Some have interpreted Godzilla as the embodiment of the spirits of those who were lost in the Pacific War, seeking revenge on the Imperial Japanese government. Although I don't think this theme is necessarily prevalent in the original movie, it's certainly been applied to the film in later years and is present in the movie GMK. This may be why many interpret the original movie in the way that they do. It's also been reported that audiences cheered during the destruction of the Capitol building, aka the Japanese Diet, as it provided them with a profound sense of empowerment. They were able to watch the government who led them to defeat torn down before their very eyes. The film also offers a way out. It provides viewers with the ability to understand and sympathize with the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Godzilla is an aggressive, dangerous force who seeks out peaceful civilizations and attacks them. Ultimately, the use of a weapon of mass destruction, one that is repeatedly compared to the atomic bomb, is what kills Godzilla. Godzilla needed to be stopped, and there was only one way to do it. The movie asks us to sympathize with the use of a weapon of mass destruction, and it presents Serizawa, the person who uses that, as its primary hero. Assistant director Koji Kajita said that Honda kept his themes secret from the cast and crew during production. He placed them in where he saw fit, but didn't force them upon anybody. Kajita says that the prayer the choir girls sing is meant to be Honda's core message of the movie. As far as related events are concerned, the Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security was signed in September of 1951. Called the AMPO for short, this allowed the US to use Japanese soil for military bases and stated that America can, but doesn't have to protect the Japanese people in times of armed conflict. Japan was remilitarized in March of 1954 with the Japanese Self-Defense Force. This was a small military which acted as a sort of national police. Article 9 of the US written Japanese Constitution prevents Japan from establishing an actual military and forbids Japan from waging war, stating that it is not a sovereign right of the nation. Godzilla was made with the cooperation of the JSDF and features them heavily throughout the film. Although they are ultimately ineffective, they are portrayed in a positive light. The struggle here with Article 9's demilitarization of Japan has been something that the Godzilla franchise has touched upon repeatedly throughout its career. Most notably, this is featured heavily during the 2016 movie Shin Godzilla and plays directly into the plot. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the original Godzilla. Like I said, there's so much to unpack there. I want to make so many videos talking about the themes in this movie and everything. I just don't have the time at the moment. The original Godzilla is, in my opinion, the greatest movie ever made, and so of course I'm gonna try and give it the time it deserves. I encourage everyone to go check it out on their own and explore the topics as in depth as they wish. The movie's rich with information. It would just take too long to unpack in one video. I'd also like to give a shout out to James and Chelsea of Dead Meat for allowing me the opportunity to appear on their podcast. It was such an incredible opportunity, and I will never forget it. Literally, this is something that I've dreamed about. I can't even explain or verbalize what that experience is for me. There are a few things that I've experienced over the years that I just am at a loss of words to describe, and this is definitely one of them. Now that the video's over, I'll mention that like the entire background looks all barren. There's like supposed to be a mountain of boxes here that's gone. I haven't unboxed them all or anything like that. It's just that I needed them out of my room for when I recorded the podcast. Try to make myself look a little nicer. I also thought I'd put together my old iconic look. So we got the 54 shirt, but also the old Hurley jacket. You know, try and feature the look that I was popularized with in the first place. Thank you to anybody who supports the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Remember that you guys are the real heroes. And thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man, out.